name's John Macero. I'm the Superintendent of Stoneham Public Schools. I'm excited today to be here for my first time to talk to you, along with my guest, Tina Stanislavski. Tina is with HMFH Architects Association, and we're here today to talk about an exciting topic, which is the Stoneham High School building project. So as many of you know, recently in 2013 we completed Stoneham Central Middle School through the Massachusetts School Building Authority, and the Stoneham Middle School was built. There was the middle school component there, and as you all realized, 5th grade stayed at the Stoneham Middle School, and that allowed the other schools to be pre-K through 4, which was Robin Hood, South, and Colonial Park. So now moving on, we've been looking at the Stoneham High School, and we have, over the past few years, have put in a statement of interest to try to get the Stoneham High School in the MSBA project. If we can get accepted by the Massachusetts School Building Authority, then we could look at multiple options for Stoneham High School. In the meantime, though, Stoneham residents, through the town meeting last year, elected to do its own feasibility study. And as a new superintendent coming in, I was put on the design committee to select an architect to, over the past 6 months, put together a feasibility study that will tell us as Stoneham residents and officials what is needed for us to look at the possibility of a new high school or renovation or those types of projects. So fortunately, the design committee last May, we met and we interviewed 3 or 4 architects, and we selected HMFH, and Tina Stanislavski, who's to my right, is the principal project manager of the project, who has been working with us in Stoneham. So welcome, Tina.
Thank you for having me here.
Well, we're excited to have you here. I know that Stoneham, I will say, as I've been going through my whole entry plan and talking to people, one of the questions I get all the time is, so what are we doing about Stoneham High School? So I think it's a good time and it's a good segue for me to, to come in and take a look at that, because it's my first year here in Stoneham. And of course, our ultimate goal is to be selected by the Massachusetts School Building Authority to be part of their program. Because when you're part of their program, you get a reimbursement rate, which is excellent. And we don't know what that would be at this time. However, what I will tell you is that Stoneham was one of 88 schools this year that has applied for a statement of interest, through their statement of interest, has applied to be selected. We've been narrowed down to 44 schools, and they will choose 17 schools, is what we were told last week. And we will find that information out the week of December 13th. So we're on hold right now. But what I do appreciate is that Stoneham leadership has said, we can be on hold, but we want to kind of explore what our options are. Because, you go through these beautiful elementary schools, and then you're coming up through the now state-of-the-art middle school. And then the Stoneham High School is a strong academic institution, but it's a tired building. Correct. And so that's why we brought you in. And I'd love you if you could just kind of talk about some of your findings over the course of the last, I'd say probably 4 or 5 months?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we've done actually quite a bit of work in the last few months. We started out by kind of climbing through the school with our engineers. So one of the things that MSBA is interested in is if the structure of the building is good. If the structure is okay, then they think maybe you could potentially renovate your building. You don't necessarily have to build new. So we looked at the mechanical, electrical, plumbing, fire protection systems, and any other life safety issues like security issues that might be in the school. And so, like you could imagine, we found that the building is old. It was built in the 60s. All of the mechanical system, electrical, plumbing, they've outlived their useful life. So basically, you've taken care of them over the years, not any fault of Stoneham's, but they've just sort of, lived their life, and that's it.
And I think what's interesting, too, to note is that the Massachusetts School Building Authority will tell you what the lifespan of a building is. and they build for the lifespan of a building to be 50 years.
Right.
And I think that that's important. Stoneham High School, we see the sign on it's built in 1968.
Right.
So it has certainly surpassed its lifespan to that area on that.
It has.
What are some of the other things that you've come across while you've been through the building?
The good news, like I said, the structure was good, so we can look at a renovation plan. Some of the systems like fire protection are actually missing. Okay. So there's no sprinkler system in the building now. Okay. When the building was built, it met code, but it doesn't meet the building code now.
And I think that's important. There's a lot of people understand that, because when you do your own houses and you're renovating your own homes, stuff, when certain buildings were built or homes were built, you would build things based on, at those times, building codes. Right. And so now, as we build to new or to renovate, they want you to go up to those other codes.
You have to meet those
There's
codes.
no more of this, you're grandfathered in, you have to meet those codes.
Correct.
Right now, if we don't change anything, we're okay with being in the current code that we were accepted in.
Correct.
But as we move forward, they're going to want us to increase to those codes.
Right. So some of the other issues that we saw, there's a lot of ADA issues. So somebody that's disabled and going through the school would have a difficult time parking on the site and getting to the front door. There's a slope that would be hard for them to negotiate. A lot of the hardware in the school isn't accessible, so there's knobs instead of levers for people to get in. Doorway widths are too small. So all of that would have to be studied,
And
further.
I think what's important there too is that when a lot of times when people think about ADA compliance, they're thinking about, okay, well, I got to be able to put a wheelchair through this, and okay, can I move that wheelchair in and out? It's not about that. It's about the person who's in the wheelchair. Are they able to get in and out at their own will without having any obstacles in their way? And I think that's totally different from just saying, well, we can put a ramp here or we could do this. They have to have full accessibility for themselves, which is what they should have.
And they should be able to follow the path of any other student and not have to be taken a special way because of their disability.
Correct. So. And so those are the things that we want to make sure that are happening as well.
Yeah.
Some other stuff that you may have noticed throughout the...
Some of the other things we noticed is that the size of the building, if you built it today, it would have firewalls or it would have fire protection, and those things are lacking. Okay. The fire alarm system is outdated. So you kind of compile all those things together, and you really need to make some upgrades on those life safety issues.
Sure, that makes sense. And we all know today, with all securities and everything that's going on, that's our main, one of the jobs as a superintendent, obviously you're the educational leader, but you also want to make sure that your environment is a safe environment so that students can relax and staff can relax and just do what their task is at the time, which is to learn. And so those are things that we look at all of those pictures when we're trying to look at renovating or building a new school, because it's a key component on it.
I think in newer buildings we see some security upgrades, like a locking vestibule that keeps people secure until the office staff can check people in. We also look to have entrances near your office so that folks don't have to travel through the whole school to get to you. So there's some definitely big upgrades we could make in security.
And then one of the things that we like to do is we like to take a look at what type of learning space that we want as Stoneham that encourages, student-centered learning. And so I know that we've put together some things that you have put on there, that in talking to staff and administrators and various people around the town, the school committee, multiple folks. And what did you come up with that people have been telling you that they want to see happening at Stoneham Public Schools?
So we kind of made a list of some of our goals that came out of those meetings. One of the things we heard a lot about was STEM education.
Yes.
And the ability for teachers to sort of, talk across the curriculum, so science and technology and engineering and mathematics, along with art, so we'd make it STEAM, not STEM. To have those folks sort of clustered together in the school would promote that sort of collaboration.
And location is so important. We're Stoneham. We're on I-93, I-95. We're right in the hub of the STEM businesses and communities. So why not focus our a lot of our attention on that area. So I thought that was very good. And I see that you've got multiple things like a cutting-edge makerspace fabrication lab.
Yeah, we heard a lot about sort of the 21st century hands-on learning experience. So you learn by doing.
Correct. And I mean, we want a TV production just like this right here. And I've seen those happen. I've seen what we did over in the town that I was at before. And we want performing arts spaces that highlight Stoneham's excellence in the area. I don't know if you're aware, but Stoneham last year made the state festival. They were in the finals.
That's
great. One of 14 high school drama departments to make it to the state championship.
Nice.
So, I mean, that shows right there. And what people have to understand is that when you're building or looking at renovating and you're looking at doing something for a new school project, what MSBA will tell you is that they want to know what is in your education plan and what is unique to Stoneham. And so STEM is unique to Stoneham.
Yeah.
The arts, those areas are unique. So we want to take a look at that. The National History Program at the high school, that's huge. That's a huge thing. We're one of the only communities that really focus on that, and we send students every year to DC for that. And so you want to promote those areas and really accent it. So what other stuff did we take a look at that we have that were priorities?
I think it sort of goes back to some of that STEAM.
The
science labs in the school are really outdated. MSBA has, square footage guidelines now that are based on a safety requirement. So the classrooms now are like 1,200 square feet, and they should be around 1,400. So they're just shy of where they need to be, but really the facilities in there, the tables need to move. You need to be
Everything
able to
has to be
make it a flexible environment.
What you've learned, what's changed over the years since you and I were in school, and many people in our community, is that a lot of learning today is project-based learning. And so they understand that, and when they build in the science labs, they want you to be able to move around and be flexible in the areas that you have. And so that's important.
Flexible furniture is key for all kinds of spaces, the general classrooms also, because teachers like to move the kids into small groups, and then back into the big group or in a discussion circle, and so your furniture needs to be flexible to do that.
That's right. And then, you need to also take a look at our life skills programs that we have. They need to have special education classrooms. They need to be integrated with the classroom wings. Everything needs to have a structure of what has to happen within the school. It's a total inclusive model. And that's what we're looking for. It's not that we're not there. We have to move rooms around now, but when you go to remodel or build, you're able to think about those things and build for that
purposely
as you go. Because in today's world, we want to make sure that everybody is included on what is happening.
And I think the district is trying to keep more and more students in district and not send them out. And so over time, because the high school is a little bit bigger than what it was planned for, you've been able to kind of accommodate that, but you've run out of room now. So you're at that tipping point where you just have no more space to accommodate everybody that needs to be accommodated.
One of the other things that I know that you've highlighted and we've looked at, and I've been totally impressed with, and I love, when I'm driving down that entryway to Stoneham High School, is the campus style and all the athletic fields and the facilities that we have here. I mean, it's located in such a great space that you look at the athletic facilities and you want to support that, and you want to support health and wellness. We're talking about today, the whole new keywords is the social and emotional, but it's so true because we've been so fixed on testing over the last 10 years that people realize, though, that we also have to do the whole student and the whole being. And so, health and wellness are important. But then you'll see that bottom line there, pre-K program integrated at the high school. One of the things that I saw coming into Stoneham is that we're already having some issues with placing for preschool classrooms, because we don't have enough room at the elementary levels. So one of the things that we've talked about that might be of an exciting program is that the high school has a child development course, and currently they've been doing that, and they work with preschool classrooms. They go out to various areas. throughout the community. However, why not build a preschool wing
In the high school,
in the high school? And so that kind of, in the expression of killing two birds with one stone, it kind of allows us to open up more space at the elementary levels
Right.
to have reduced class sizes. And then it also opens us to have an opportunity for high school students to be able to really get their hands on with a preschool classroom, preschool lab
Right.
type of style. And
Right.
I thought that was something that came out of your report because people have been talking about that. And I
Yep.
felt like that would be very, very good, something for us to take a look at.
And we
So-
do see in the schools that we build, because we focus mostly on educational architecture, that putting those two populations together is quite common. And you can keep them as segregated or as,
right.
tightly knit as you want to.
But I will tell you from my past experience, we had a preschool lab in the new high school over in Winthrop. And I always called the preschool students, they were the kryptonite to my high school students, because as much as the high school students, they enjoy their environment, when they'd see the little preschoolers, they would just melt.
Yep.
And they would also act very appropriately.
Right.
And I think it's a great combination, and it's a great learning combination. So
Agreed.
so I'm looking forward to seeing how that all works out. So all of those things went into your report,
Correct.
and then what comes out of that report
What's
for
next?
us? What's next?
So
exactly.
then we take all that information and we look to see if renovation is possible. So I said earlier that the building is slightly oversized for the population that it has, but just slightly. And then if you add in the preschool program, it kind of bumps it a little bit over. So we looked at a renovation option. We looked at a renovation addition option where you build almost everything new, but you save your gymnasium, because the gymnasium that you have now, first of all, is in very good shape. It's a little bit bigger than what MSBA would allow you to build new.
Right.
It's 16,000 square feet, and they allow 12,000. So if you kept that, they could give you money towards the renovation of it, but you wouldn't have to build a brand new gymnasium. So we have an option that saves that and builds a new pre-K wing next to it. And then we looked at a brand new option. And the goal of all of this is to sort of, take everybody's goals and wish list and then send them out for pricing so that the town has a good idea of how much each of these options will cost.
Sure. So why don't we take a look at the existing building? I think we have a slide that can show. So for those of you who aren't familiar with Stoneham High School, I'm sure many of you are. I'm sure we have many graduates who are viewers of this program. But if you'll look at the slide there, you'll notice that we have the courtyard right in the middle there, and then there's the gymnasium. Of course, is the lawn on our left,
Our
as you
left,
can take
yeah.
a look, and then all the way to the far right is the auditorium.
Right.
And so the entrances are down at the front. So do you want to talk a little about what the
Sure.
existing looks like?
Sure. So as John just explained, you've got your two most public spaces, the gym and the auditorium, at opposite ends of the school from one another. So that's a little tricky when it comes to shutting down the school at night just for public events. So in a new building, you would probably segregate them to one area so that you could just keep one entrance open and not all your classrooms would be open. You can see that the administration is by the main entrance, which is good, but the district offices are all the way in the back of the school, and they're in green.
Right.
So you can see them. So that's a little bit tricky. And then there's so much, the blue spaces are locker room space, so when you come in, you don't even really know the gym is there. It's kind of hidden,
It
so
is hidden.
that's a little tricky.
And there's not a lot of light that goes into the gym.
Yeah.
And
It's
I know-
got some outdated call wall at the top where
Right.
it's kind of yellowed over time, so
Right.
that all
And
needs
one of
to
the
be
things
upgraded.
that I've noticed too is that when you actually, maybe more windows or things looking into a gym,
Mm-hmm.
whether you're second floor or first floor, being able to take a look into it, it changes the culture
Mm-hmm. It does.
again, because it shows that people are, they're doing, kids are, you can see what's happening. So
Right.
it's a good thing. So this existing, if you were to renovate, how would that work for the option one? There it is, right there.
This is our existing building.
Right.
So in the option where we wanted to build almost everything new, and we wanted to get the auditorium next to the gym, we could build in front of the existing school building and then keep the existing gym and renovate it.
Okay,
so that would
so-
be done over multiple phases, but it's pretty straightforward.
So on the but the option one on the renovation. So you see here, that's what the building would look like. It would look the same as we did on the renovation. But during that renovation, we would have to...
You would have to get modular classrooms. So you'd
Right.
fill up your big parking lot to the right of the school with modular classrooms, and those would be there for duration of construction. So that's like 3 to 4 years. So some students, for their entire high school career, might be in a modular classroom.
Right.
This may be the least expensive of the options, but we'll have to see how that pans out
Sure.
when we see the estimates.
Okay, so let's take a look at option two. Option two. So we know that option one would be basically you would set up,
keep everything
keep
the same.
everything the same that you're doing. You would make some, but when I say same, I don't mean that it would look the same. You would
We would
update
upgrade
it
the
with
facades
everything
and
that it needed to
everything,
be.
and then educationally we would update it. We would create that STEAM corridor that we were talking about.
So option two, you're going to put the building in front of the current building,
Right.
and you would go up 3 floors.
It would be 3
So
floors,
that'd be
yeah.
mostly your academic wing.
Correct.
But you would keep the gymnasium.
Right, and we would build a new auditorium next to it in the front there.
And the purpose of that, that's great. That picture right there shows you what it could look like, because then the school would be gone in the back. So in order to put parking, I noticed we moved a softball field on the other side.
Correct.
But these are all subject to change as you go take a look at it. But what that would look like there is your academic wing. Your auditorium and your gymnasium would be easily accessible on the off hours.
Correct.
So that you don't have to go into the academic zone for security purposes.
Correct.
And you've taken the space of the gymnasium and you've left that gym, you've renovated it.
Right.
And it still goes right out to the fields, which is really nice.
And we relocated the locker rooms and everything underneath it, so now those are really next to the field. So you
Yeah.
can come right out onto the field.
See what you've done there on that.
And it's actually added quite a bit of green space to your site, and that's something we heard a lot of in the visioning sessions where we talked about the teachers. They asked for outdoor classroom space, more
Sure.
play fields.
And then, of course, and we wouldn't have to move into modulars in that particular thing.
Nope.
We would stay right in the building.
Yep.
And once that was completed, then that building, we would move into the other building and the building would be torn down.
Correct.
Let's take for time purposes, let's take a look at what option 3 looks like currently right now.
So option 3 is the new build. So
Okay, so that would be just an all straight out new
Yep.
building
Everything
that
new.
you would build. And the reason why we show you the picture there of the new building, where it looks like it's to the left, it's behind the tennis courts, because obviously you couldn't build where the high school is unless you had to move us out and then put a brand new high school in that
Right.
same lot. So the high school would be there, and then when you take that high school out, you would have the field. It's kind of in an interesting location, but obviously that allows you to you build it within 24 months.
correct.
And everything in there is all brand new, as opposed to just renovating one part of the building and having the rest of the building.
And you still gain a lot of fields in this option, and I'm not touching any of the other existing fields, so I was trying to find the least expensive place on the site to
Right.
put this.
Oh, that's right. So on
So
this
they
one,
all
you keep
stay
the
the same.
softball fields where they're at, and you pick up some other additional stuff. The only difference here is that when you're coming out of the gymnasium, if the gymnasium is the gymnasium located similar to where it was in the other one?
Yeah, well, it's kind of, you would come out the side of the building closest to on the opposite side of the tennis
Oh, okay,
courts.
so then you would come
and then
out
you'd come
by
onto the fields.
and you would walk down that
Right.
way. Okay, so you wouldn't go through the parking
No,
lot or
no.
anything like that. I see that. Okay, and so that's what the option 3. So now, just so that I can tell the community, we're nowhere near any of those areas yet. What we've done is we were tasked with doing a feasibility study. We're still doing that feasibility study. We've come up with some options. I'm going to report about that at the town meeting on October 16th. Our next thing to look at is what those prices would look like.
Right.
So that we can kind of get a ballpark figure to look at what is the big picture look like. In the meantime, though, we're still taking a look at where we are with MSBA. If MSBA
Right.
invites us to be part of their program, then we get into that pipeline and we start to move on their schedule,
Correct.
which we have to still do a whole entire feasibility study
Much
again.
more in-depth.
Exactly, and we create a building committee. But more importantly, we're on the road to coming up
Success.
with some decision that would happen. And I think that those things are key to what's, where we're at on that.
It's a very exciting project.
It is. It's a good project that I think that's one of the things that we look at with this project too is that it has to be educationally sound.
Right.
We're not just building something for the purpose of building it. I can tell you from, and you know from your experience of working with MSBA and other areas, that MSBA will only allow you to build what's in your
Ed plan.
right, your educational plan. Couple of things, though, that I do want to clarify, that I think you clarified for a second, because people have asked, well, we don't want to lose our auditorium size, because we have, I think it's one of the only auditoriums in town, it's got about 1,000 people seating, and
Right.
we certainly don't want to lose our gymnasium size.
Right.
It's a large gymnasium, it works for us in great space. We don't have to.
No.
And could you explain to them why?
So they've recently allowed towns.
And they is the MSBA.
MSBA has allowed towns and districts to build up to 1,000 square foot or 1,000 seat auditorium or up to 16,000 square foot gym. The remainder over the square footage, the town would have to pick up on their own dime. So they allow you a 12,000 square foot gym, but if you wanted 16,000, you could do it. You'd have to pay the difference between the two.
Or
Same
we
for
can
the auditorium.
renovate the current one that we're
Or you
in,
could
and
renovate.
we may benefit from that.
Correct. They might give you the amount of money they would have given you for a new 12,000 square foot gym to renovate your 16,000 square foot gym, which could be great.
Which could be, take care of it. And then in the auditorium,
Same thing. They would allow you to build up to 2/3 of the population, and then you could pay the rest if you wanted to build an extra up to 1,000 seats.
okay.
So
So there is those options. I just wanted to make sure that everybody was clear on that, what the allowance is, because I know when we built the middle school, there was
They
no
wouldn't allow
allowance
you.
to build an auditorium,
Right.
because they'll only allow you an auditorium in one.
in a high school.
In the high school, or you can choose at certain spaces, but it's only going to be one.
Correct.
And so we didn't have that.
Right.
And many people have asked those questions about
Yep.
why that is the case. And the thing is that we weren't even able to build it if we wanted to.
Right. This
And
is
that's
a
the
new
other
thing
part.
that they've allowed recently.
Right.
So that's a good thing.
Because when you go into partner with MSBA, you have to follow their guidelines and follow their rules, and
Because they're giving you a good amount of money, so
So
they're a good partner.
So we're hopeful. I think that we've gotten off to a good start here. You came on in May, and we have been working continuously around the clock to try to get this up and running so that people understand the options. We're a long way from the project. When the project if it goes into MSBA, what do you anticipate? What's that time frame, if you could tell? Because you
Sure.
have a lot of experience
Yeah,
with this.
the feasibility part is the most lengthy, so that's going to take about a year. So you'll do feasibility study and schematic design, and then you'll have another year of design after that. So design development through CDs, and then
So
it'll take
you're about what, 2 years into the plan, or
2 years, and then
Okay.
at least another 2 years of construction.
Right.
So
So
you're
I
about
know from
4 years minimum away from.
when I started in Winthrop in 2011, and 5 years later, we opened up a brand new high school, middle school. So that's usually the anticipation. So if we could get into the pipeline here, I would say that you're probably, a lot of people ask, but it's 2017, you're probably looking at around 22. To fully be able to move in and do
Right.
what you need to do
Right.
in those areas. Obviously, things could move faster,
Right.
or they could move slower depending upon
Which
the
option you
situation.
choose too.
Right.
Some
So-
have longer construction times, some don't.
Exactly. So, Tina, well, thank you very much for coming today. This was my first episode, I guess, of Chalk Talk here in Stoneham. And I just want to say before we close to the community of Stoneham, the town of Stoneham, that it is an honor and a privilege to be the superintendent here in Stoneham. I have enjoyed so far my first few months of getting to know the community, talking to the people, getting to know your kids, and I look forward to continuing that. And if you ever have any questions or concerns, please don't hesitate. You can get me on email very easily at jmacero@stonehamschools.org. So with that said, Tina, thank you again.
Thank you for having me.
I want to thank you all for watching us, and here's to the next Chalk Talk. We'll see you soon. Thank you.